And so I really enjoyed getting ready for this conference, and it kind of taught me things I didn't even know I knew. And so I'm not from here. I'm not a Michigander. I'm from Philadelphia. So being an out-of-state student already gave me a unique perspective here at State. I'm not able to show you where I'm from on my hand, and I don't know the small towns you guys talk about on the west coast of the state. But I even use Philadelphia loosely as my hometown because I had a very international childhood. Born in the UK, a lot of time in Japan, and I like to throw Warsaw, Indiana in there because it was my favorite place to live. But one thing I always knew with my family is that they were going to try and get me back to East Lansing. And so it was no surprise when I ended up here 4 years ago. Freshman year was great. I was excited. I came in coded as pre-med human biology, taking a lot of chemistry, a lot of physics, a lot of calculus. And then on the eve of the application deadline, I got this crazy idea to study abroad. And so I went through the pre-orientation and applied to a few different programs and kind of went with the first one that took me. And that ended me up here. I spent a month studying in the northern regions of India, in the Himalayan mountains up there near Pakistan and Nepal. And I learned things I didn't even know I was learning at the time. So what was coded as SSC, ESA, ISS were really these transformative lessons of interdisciplinary learning. And that was a really big word when I first started looking for definitions of what people say interdisciplinary learning is. And to me, interdisciplinary learning is simply going outside of the box. It was taking, looking more into those chemistry classes I was taking, that physics class, and kind of expanding it to involve critical thinking and completely inclusive learning. So spoken here by William Newell at Miami University has a College of Interdisciplinary Learning, Interdisciplinary Studies. And he says the process of interdisciplinary learning includes a number of valuable informal logic skills, such as distinguishing evidence from conclusions, relevant from irrelevant facts, and facts from ideals, assessing the validity of assumptions and arguments, recognizing internal contradictions, unstated implications of arguments, and the power and appropriateness of rhetorical devices. Interdisciplinary learning involves turning the critical eye inward upon oneself and becoming critically self-reflective. And when I found that kind of smacked me in the face because that's exactly what India did to me. When I started thinking about it, traveling internationally, I think all of us can speak to it as presenters, is inherently interdisciplinary. You're trying to manage different language barriers, you're trying to manage culture shock, you're trying to manage this whole experience and kind of take it in all at once. And really, you don't think about that as you're doing it. You just kind of find the train station even when you have the misguided information. And that was the same way when I was in India. And so when I tried to think about what made this program different and why I came back with such an interdisciplinary mindset, I found that there was something special about this program, and it was my fellow students. So there were 12 of us, a small number. That was fine because we were carrying backpacks through the Himalayan mountains, and that's not for everyone. But what is interesting is that's a characteristic, that exciting, outgoing, adventurous characteristic that you can find in any type of person. And so we had 12 people from the very far corners of MSU's academic landscape, and the structure of our program kind of catered to that. So we had 12 distinct majors here: music education, tourism management, James Madison international relations, zoology, gender studies, engineering, health studies. Anything really you were interested in, this program catered to studying. So the setup and structure of this program, and each of these pictures were fun to me to go through and put them in here because they're a little blurry and I know you don't know what I'm talking about, but if you see, we're kind of studying in each of these pictures, and we have had an incredible resource to professionals in many different fields who were knowledgeable, about their own profession. So over there, we're looking up at trees. We had a forestry professor come talk to us. We had a tourism guide basically up in a tourist destination talk to us, about the trends he was seeing in tourism. we had our geology professor here from MSU explaining to us, these mountains we were climbing, how they were formed. And this was one of my favorite pictures. And actually speaking to us here is Dr. Prem Boudoir, who was an ex-foreign ambassador to Canada. And he had some really great insights on being Indian, having spent so much time in North America and coming back to, where he was from. And the interesting thing about this was we were all together. We were, forestry students didn't go to the forestry professor, and it was just him. I didn't go speak to the doctors and just, learn about the health studies. We all had all the same lectures. And so by the end of the program, it was really interesting because, we knew what our other students were looking at, and we could almost swap identities. And I could ask the question that the fisheries and wildlife students wanted to know because I had sat in on the lecture and the questions he was looking at so many times. But what that really opened up was taking one area and seeing all the different ways that you could study it. Thinking and looking at, one person is maybe being very focused in forestries and that realm of his disciplinary studies, but then taking that back and seeing how that relates to waste management systems in, the busy, crowded city of Delhi. And when some of the questions I remember asking these professors and these professionals kind of took them aback because we were asking questions in a way that, I had no familiarity with geology, but I was asking questions in a way, well, how does that affect, the access of these people in this community to the resources that they need? And it kind of made you start to think, well, maybe things are more interconnected than disciplinary studies allow us to explore. So I threw in here kind of the notes of some of these lectures. And they're really interesting because you can see they're very separated by who was asking questions when. You have education, technology, tourism, economics, medicine, farming, and then more medicine for me. Stereotypes, problems, women, family planning, sustainability, and medical tourism. And so flipping back through my notebooks, it's kind of funny to see that I can match up exactly with my fellow student who was asking these questions, but then in each of these, I selfishly kind of tied it into the broader picture of health systems that I was looking at. And as they were questioning the professionals, I was tying it back into, what my disciplinary knowledge had been and what my exposure to the health fields had been. And so I found that very interesting, and that definitely was thought-provoking when I got back on campus and was sitting in a organic chemistry class and starting to think about how does this relate to everything else going on in the world. So that brings me back to East Lansing. And it's cliche to say India changed everything. So I'll just say the growth that I experienced in India has kind of been the framework for everything else I've done since. Come back to my sophomore year and cue the major changes. I added a social science degree in anthropology. Then my sophomore year I added specializations and minors. And when I get out of here in May, I will have the most long-winded combination of titles, I think, ever. Add to that experience working in the study abroad office. And as a peer advisor in the study abroad office, I work with international students coming in and domestic students going abroad. And I find that every single day my interactions with people who are sometimes from remind me of me in the disciplinary human biology coded degree and not understanding how study abroad, how expanded boundaries can really contribute to their pre-medical track. And I'm able to say that the most important thing I can do is study abroad, not knowing what my next step is when I get out of here in May, is that I can introduce myself with an interdisciplinary skill set in my back pocket. And I think that being able to say that I'm a critical thinker, I'm holistic, I'm competent, and well-rounded is really the best benefit of my study abroad experience.